There we go. Okay, well, thanks everyone for showing up. I appreciate it. Before we get rolling, is anyone aware of anyone else who was going to join in and maybe running a bit behind schedule, or is everyone accounted for? Okay, then we will push on. First, thank you for being here. And as Ann and I were talking, everyone on the meeting today is probably getting into their early stress phase as the new academic year approaches. No one seems to be having a nervous breakdown yet, but we can reconvene in a month and see who the survivors are. And other than that, why don't we just go ahead and get started? Generally, from what I've heard from all the schools so far, is that everything is up, improved, a little bit tighter. People at different schools are making different adjustments in different ways and seeing improvements asymmetrically then. And so I think that's going to be the big benefit from this year's meeting, is that people who are doing very specific tweaks are getting very specific results. And that's certainly some of the stuff we share. So let's kick off, starting with our host at WVU, and tell us what went well, especially better than expected this past year.
Excellent. Sorry. I have a very interested puppy in the background, an 11-year-old puppy, so that's why I was muted. So I'm Ann Jones. I'm the director of the Hayhurst Launch Lab at WVU. I actually stepped into the role of director in January, but I have been very involved throughout the entire year. And like many universities, we had some pretty big cuts last year. But some of the things that went really, really well is we're beginning to get some real traction on getting repeat students coming back and moving sort of up the path from one pitch competition, coming back next year and working through. So we're sort of getting into a place where we're getting more freshmen in, so therefore we're getting more seniors who are really ready to graduate with success. So that's something that went really well. The other thing is that one thing that went, I think, really well this year, and I had mentioned this to Guy, we see that a lot of students are sort of solopreneurs, as well as a large university is pretty siloed. So we sort of added a new event to try to help businesses that had already gone through some of our pitch competitions, including our ZinnStarter pitch competition in the fall. And we did it in March, so we called it March Matchness. And basically, it was a big event to get STEM people and non-STEM people to come together and build teams. And then finally, I would say the one thing that did not go as well, we tried it, and it didn't go as well, is with a lot of our budget cuts, we did not have the ability to do many pitch competitions this year. So we sort of did some combining, packing in. We got a big crowd, but I think it didn't give time for people to sort of come back in and try something else. So that's sort of kind of a little of where we are.
Okay, Anu, what went wonderful this year?
So one of the things that went really well is that we have another event, an event that a competition event that we started 20 years ago called the Silicon Valley Innovation Challenge. And that's held in the fall. And so I am once again running that. So the advantage of that was that, of course, I was therefore responsible for advertising it, promoting, and I knew all the students that were participating in it. And the person who helped me with ZinnStarter, we went through all the applications, and we had, I think, about 87 applications for that program, for that competition. And we use that as a basis for both for selecting and encouraging students to join the ZinnStarter program. So I would say that was probably the, one of the big, the link between the two. The second thing was that we had some dedicated mentors. So that was really good as well, who attended. And I talk about that more, but who attended like every session. And so with the students, so that helped as well.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into that just briefly. Describe for everyone else how SJSU defined dedicated mentors and how did you rope people into that level of service?
Yeah, so there are different ways, but the one thing, we find it very hard to fundraise, get money, but it's easier to have people who are willing to come in and mentor the students. So we have one faculty, we have a volunteer who is a retiree from SRI, Stanford Research Institute, and so he helps. And then the other is the new person we had this time he is a retiree from Intel. And Intel has a fellowship program. So he is a fellow with us and for like 1 year. And so he is, his role is also to come and he can give guest lectures and, mentorship and so on. So I roped him into, being a mentor. So those were the two people who were like regular. They came to every session that we had with the ZinnStarter teams. And we had bi-weekly meetings with the ZinnStarter teams on campus. And so these two gentlemen came for every meeting. And then we also had some people from a bank. They came as well, and one of them is an alum, so they would come in as well. And so it just and then some other people, others as well, someone from Google, someone, I have details if so how do we, it's just somehow we have some, I use my network to encourage, ask anyone who's interested to come in and mentor our students. But in addition to that, we also have people from outside saying that they are willing to help us.
Okay, excellent. Anyway, we'll move on. I think we have 2 reps from UVU. Who wants to go first? What do you think went astoundingly well?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit about what we did. And myself and Alessandra are also new as of December and January. So we've had a busy, speaking of our hair on fire, we've had a busy 6 months getting everything up to speed. But we're really excited. So, I mean, our take is the success of ZinnStarter as kind of that culminating moment really depends on what kind of experiences we have students go through to lead up and prepare so they get the most out of ZinnStarter in terms of a really powerful pitch competition. And so this year we did kind of a experimental this last semester step, and then in the fall we're building on that to try to kind of fully fledge out that program. So this year we had kind of 2 tiers where we had the students that were more ready, had a little bit more traction in their businesses, had really validated their business ideas, participate in kind of the grand ZinnStarter experience. And then we had a smaller tiered experience, which was a lot of the same material, but it was the earlier stage students that were maybe not ready for the big time. And that worked really well. We were able to, help students get to that next stage a little bit quicker. This fall, we're excited to kind of take that learning from that experience and build it out. So we've in-housed speaking of mentors, we've in-housed our mentoring system. Instead of just having a mentor list, we're actually training specific mentors who are paid mentors in the Entrepreneurship Institute to help students with the really early stuff of, let me get my idea validated. Let me figure out if, there's something here or not. Let me kind of get the early kind of hard bits of getting some traction. Maybe you're not ready to talk to a big deal mentor yet, but you want to help validate your business. And then we have new programming. We have 5 industry specific classes where students over the course of the semester go from 0 to revenue as part of these classes. So we have that early mentoring built into the Entrepreneurship Institute. Then we have these classes where they get to actually build their businesses and hopefully achieve revenue by the end of the semester in these specific industry verticals. Like we have a freelancing one, we have a tech one, we have a e-commerce one, we have a, and then the beauty of that is then ZinnStarter sits as kind of the pinnacle achievement about they're building towards that experience. And since they've had traction, hopefully have revenue by the end of the semester, they're able to enter ZinnStarter with a lot more confidence and excitement and kind of this sense of, all right, now we're ready to like really launch and grow and scale. And ZinnStarter is going to be kind of that launch pad to that. So we're excited to see how that goes in the fall, and hopefully the learnings from this kind of in between semester is going to kind of feed that well.
Now, Seth, these classes that are available for the not quite ready for prime time contestants, are they part of the standard curricula, or have you cobbled together a separate non points earning set of classes that they can pull themselves up by the rope?
So these are 4-credit classes, so they will get academic credit for them. And they're taught by a combination of, there's a core instructor for each course, obviously, but we also have community leaders coming and teaching those courses as well as mentoring them. So like one session of each class is an instruction, and as much as possible, we try to have someone from the community come teach that's an expert on that topic. And then the second class each week is a workshop where the students come in, maybe they've been working on their branding strategy and they're surrounded by local mentors to kind of workshop that branding strategy or their go-to-market strategy or their how to do your initial sales, whatever it is that they're working on that week. So it is 4 credit, and the instruction is both a mix of professors and community mentors.
Interesting. That might be worth a write-up for the other schools, just if they're interested in terms of the syllabus for those classes and how many credits students are earning and things like that. Because I know various schools, and we even tried, cobbling together a bunch of online classes. Everyone's taken kind of a different approach to allowing some bootstrapping in terms of the missing parts of a launch-ready company set of educations. So everyone has everyone else's email address. If you get enough people saying they want to see a syllabus, then you'll have an action item. Alessandra, anything that you noticed that went exceptionally well?
Yeah, just to kind of tack on what Seth mentioned, like he said, this was our first semester running this, and so we definitely learned a lot and are excited to implement different changes this fall. One thing we were kind of experimenting with is the application process, and I'd love to hear if any of you have any thoughts of things that have worked well. It was, we don't want to make the application too intense to scare anyone off, but obviously we want them to have a buy-in to participate in this. And so that was something interesting that we tried different types of things, and we're redoing it for fall to see how it works. And also learning how to separate the different types of businesses. It was a little hard to judge, a service as opposed to maybe a consumer good or a tech company, right? They're all in different stages and different areas, which is why, as Seth mentioned, we kind of had 2 different events for the students where, you're ready to go, you could really use some funding, or the other ones who, they've got a great idea, but they haven't quite started yet. So that worked really well for us separating it that way, and we'll see how it continues to pan out.
Okay, great. Annette, what happened that was wonderful at your school?
Well, we are small and it's me, and every time Guy talks to me, I explain to him that I don't have a secretary, I don't have a TA, I don't have any assistants, and it's me. And we ran ZinnStarter in the spring, prepping more for students in the fall. And I ended up with 3 very qualified service-based businesses that presented. So we don't have Silicon Valley. We have a lot of tourism, a lot of marketing, social media. And so we ended up with 3 students, one of which I think was not as inspired by school, which to me, it kind of spoke to my heart more, was the fact that he was not really, he is really not an academic, but as soon as we started working on his business plan, which was to kind of recreate old clothing and make it into new, more stylish clothing, according to his style. And so he presented in front of the board his idea, and the students said, well, go out and sell some, and we'll let you know if you qualify for any funding. And the next week he walked in and said, I sold $1,000 worth this weekend. So we're like, okay, cool, you're on. So, and he, I personally don't think academics is his specialty, but he's done very well in school, and I think this has gotten him very motivated. Two other groups that presented, one a marketing-based business and one an eatery. And honestly, I mean, the size of our school and the size of our, we don't even compare on a microcosm to your sizes of your schools. So we're a total of maybe 1,300 students in our entire school. So we are very small, and it's only me. So I keep it going as best I can. So, but I think it went really well, considering I had a great board and I had a great group that challenged the students. We do have some really good mentors that are all volunteer, and more that are in the wings that I just have to talk to and get them involved. But every student that had an idea had a mentor that they worked with in the community, that worked with them personally, giving them advice. So yeah,
Right.
that's Helena, Montana. Yeah.
And I'd like our returning friend Sean at Virginia Tech. They will be, I believe they have committed to coming back into the ZinnStarter fold this next academic year. And even though they weren't doing anything this last year, they were the first ZinnStarter school. So maybe just a quick note about what launching the first ZinnStarter program was like, and how many arrows and bullets did you guys take in the process?
I think if you work in entrepreneurship at a university, it's always interesting because it's an inside and also, and maybe outside university adjacent field, but that's what keeps it interesting. So not many arrows and bullets, but a lot of explaining why entrepreneurship is a really important part of a student experience for sure, which I'm sure you all can relate to. So yeah, Sean Collins, great to be back with the group. It was an interesting year for us. We had a dean transition in the business school. So we're a university-wide center, but we are administratively housed in our business school. And we are a tier 1 research university. And so like Anne referenced, our students on curricular tracks are quite siloed, and have very heavy kind of conventional 3 credit hour degree programs. And so our job is really to run cross-cutting and to provide a totally different interdisciplinary experience that complements the degree programs, but gets them working in cross-functional teams and gets them out of the silos. So dean transition, and our founding executive director, who is a great colleague and a personal friend, Derek McGard, Arizona finally called him home. He and his wife were both from Arizona, and so you will see Derek pop up running entrepreneurship writ large at University of Arizona, which is going to be announced in the next couple of weeks. But 2 transitions of a dean and a founding executive director make for an exciting academic year for sure. On the metrics side, the students don't care about any of that, and they are really motivated to do entrepreneurship, right? So we had a lot of very high caliber students come through. We're fortunate. We have, like you all, we have very capable students who have kind of grown up with entrepreneurship as part of their high school experience. And so we find a lot of students now looking at the university, asking what the university does in entrepreneurship. And I think ZinnStarter, is one of a couple of entities that's really kind of raising that flag around the country. So super excited to be back. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and excited to work with the group this year.
Fantastic. And speaking of Derek, it's one of my follow-up duties later in the summer to hunt him down the game and see whether the university he shifted to is ready to jump into the ZinnStarter fold. And towards the end of the meeting, I'm going to throw out my usual pitch, but I believe Ray is now ready to add more schools. We got hit by the pandemic like everyone else, and we decided just to stand down until we were sure everything was leveled out. And so we will be hunting for new candidates, and we will be using you guys to make connections and recommendations. So back to Anne. Did anything go badly or completely blow up in your face this year?
Well, let me see. I still have a job, so far, that was good. Let me see. I was thinking, did anything go really badly? Actually, we didn't have anything blow up in our face, which probably means we weren't pushing enough. And we were working on a lot of sort of calculated risks this year because our budget was cut by 50%. So we're sort of figuring it out how it went. I think the only thing that obviously did not go well for us this year is that some of the national pitch competitions and larger statewide pitch competitions that we had been working with our students to put out there, we weren't successful, and I don't think they were. The program, the other pitch competitions weren't run in such a way that we felt that our students had a good experience. So, you sort of tell people to go out, learn from us, do ZinnStarter, get out there, and then get out in the world and show them what you've got. And so I'm not sure this year everyone had a good experience getting out there. But other than that, it was a lot of small calculated risks and went pretty well.
Was there any central theme to problems that they had going to the external competitions? Any one factor that kept repeating itself?
So it's interesting you say that. I think one of the things that we can do, so when we're in the state of West Virginia, so it may be specific to our state, but maybe not. I think every region sort of have its vision of what they do well and what we don't do well. And sometimes when we're bringing something, maybe the opposite of being like in Silicon Valley, when we bring something out with an idea that's really a big idea, when somebody's got an idea that's maybe working on AI, we have people outside of WVU who are saying, I don't think we can do it. And so I'm jumping up and down saying, yes, we can do it. Just give our students a chance. So I think that's one challenge that we saw in terms of within the state. And I think the other challenge that we face, when our students have gone to national pitch competitions, we've usually had the funding to be there with them. And so that was frustrating not being able to be there with them. Not that I don't know, any of you guys love helping your students pitch till midnight the night before their pitch competition, but actually it's kind of fun. So we're hoping we can do that again. And just to sort of close out that answer, we got a lot of funding cut. We lost our executive director. And I didn't know that I had my job until December. So it was sort of like, it was a little touch and go, but we put together a pretty cool team. So I think we're ready to take a big step forward.
Okay. Anu, anything your team stumbled over this year? You're muted.
Yeah, before I talk about that, I didn't say the positives as usual. But when Anne mentioned the external competitions, this year we had students going to a lot of external competitions. And so one of the teams, they won in what is it? One sec, let me just see. They were shortlisted for there's a Fowler Global Social Innovation Challenge at University of San Diego. And last year's team, actually one of last year's teams won second place. This year's team was shortlisted when they were wondering why we didn't pay for their trip, but that didn't matter. And we didn't have the funds to do that. And then they were shortlisted for another competition called WashU's Big Bounce Ideas, and they were amongst the top 14 teams. So that was pretty good, you know. And then all three teams we have another competition at the end of the spring semester called it's a Silicon Valley Business Plan competition. And all three winners were from this year's ZinnStarter program. So that was pretty good, you know. And so that was very pleasing because it can be any team, but this year all three were won by ZinnStarter teams. And the alumni did well too. And the main thing I would say is that I was unhappy with is that two teams dropped out toward the end. And one of them was really keen, and he was an engineering student, but he had come up with some Brazilian nuts that he was importing from Peru. And for the first meeting, his parents came as well. So it seemed like it was a family business. And then at some point, he dropped out. So, and then the other team as well was from biotech. And, we reached out to them several times, but they didn't reply. So it's, obviously, we even found a mentor for them, and they were measuring sugar or something called Sugar Sense, but then they just, disappeared, and it was too late to replace them. So, because otherwise we have a system whereby we replace every time. And then there were some other teams that came along, but the ideas didn't seem very promising and not far ahead enough for us to really, we just didn't think that they were valuable. And, we have a student board as well. It's not just my decision. So we decided that their ideas didn't sound very promising. So that is the only thing that I was, that's what I would say is something that threw us a bit, that, unexpected, because we started with so many, such a large number.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, before we move on, one thing about SJSU, if you would do me a personal favor and keep your ear to the ground, one of the things I'm fascinated about is the upcoming intersection of biotech and artificial intelligence. I got one of the AIs to give me a quick dump earlier this morning, and the question was, who is doing something interesting with Google's AlphaFold protein fold database? And it spit me out like about half a dozen high-level stories about people who are into some fairly exotic research. So since SJSU has, a good presence in biotech and also a good presence in AI, I would love to find out any bumping of heads between those two disciplines at your school, because SJSU is probably more uniquely primed, to cure cancer than just about anyone going at this point, because that protein fold database is something phenomenal. It's literally going to change humanity.
Well, I can find out. It's totally different, but my daughter is working for a company that does something similar.
I went right to the source then.
Though it's very secretive, so she can't reveal very much. It's a startup that's doing,
Right.
Yeah. So, and then one thing I forgot to say, so let me just say it now, and that is that for the mentors, you asked what was success. We get the, former students who are ZinnStarter alumni to come back in as mentors. And so obviously it depends on the nature of the business, the startup, what the students are working on. but that's been very successful as well. So we had a couple of former students helping our current students this time. And
Show of hands from the other schools. How many of you have ZinnStarter alum who are coming back and being mentors?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It could be a little bit of a challenge to retain them locally, I think, depending on your geography. But we have 3 that were former ZinnStarter guy that stayed in our area and are running companies after graduation. And we've actually found the relatability is a lot better with those types of mentors versus some of our alum mentors like me, because I probably remind them of their dad. But if a 25-year-old tells them the same thing, it's genius, right? So I think it has worked well.
Okay, good. Let's collectively think about that being a program requirement in the future, because one of the biggest problems we faced with the mentorship criteria inside of ZinnStarters was this huge reluctance, almost a barrier between the students and these senior execs. They were almost intimidated to go have a conversation, and because of that, they just weren't getting the mentorship that they really needed. Seth, did anything go snafu on you this year?
Not catastrophically, but as Alessandra was talking about, we definitely learned lessons with how to do applications and that we're going to implement in the fall. Getting the right amount of information from students is kind of it's a little bit of a tightrope walk, because again, we want it to not be a thing they can do in 30 seconds, but we don't want it to be so intimidating that they don't apply. And we also want to get enough information that we can really tell how much work they've put into it. Anyway, so we're figuring out the right modality as well. Do we have them do videos? Do we have them do kind of a form that we fill out? We scratched our head on that for a while, and we weren't entirely satisfied with what we went with this year. So we're mixing it up next year.
Okay.
Seth, I don't know if this is helpful, but we found a really high correlation between students that would stick with our incubator program and literally them having to show up in person at a defined day and time.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something about entrepreneurship, about like showing up and, numbers of swings you take at the plate, right? So all our applicants now show up and interview with one of our trained student consultants as part of the application process. And honestly, it's cut down on what we call phantom applications by like half. And I don't know if that's just a Virginia Tech undergrad phenomenon, but for what it's worth.
No, that makes sense. We had something similar, but we had them have to meet with mentors after they were accepted. But I like that idea of maybe flipping that script a little bit and having actually that be built into the application process instead of after acceptance. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, candid. Just being selfish, like for faculty and staff time is limited. So if we can use trained students to kind of do some of the filtering, I don't know. That's something we stumbled upon.
Yeah.
so just to clarify, you got the students, did you get them to apply via an application form or no?
For us this year, we did. We had them fill out a form, and we provided a template as well. But
right, yeah, so did we. And then you interviewed them in person. Is that what you said, Sean?
Right. So, step one, they apply through our software, which is pretty light touch. It's, we just want to map it to the background of the founders and a quick description of their venture. So the software part, we found the sweet spot is like pretty fast, probably 5 to 7 minutes. But then as a next step, they book a time with one of our trained student consultants and have to show up and go deeper.
Right.
Not because our students are experts, but it's literally just are you gonna step over the bar or not, right? And
we did that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We
Yeah.
did that too. That they
and,
all
and
had to-
then it kind of moves into the lane of like, program staff, right?
Mhm.
as a third step.
Right. Mhm. Yeah. I was, of course, wondering, we also had bi-weekly meetings on campus. And I was wondering whether that also could, but in person, you know. And so some students said, I think they had some trouble being able to come and be there, but we were quite, but it was very helpful for those who did come, you know. So, I mean, those are, anyway, we talk about that later, but those are some things that we need to weigh, you know.
Okay.
Uh, just-
Alessandra? Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
One thing, I mean, I'm already writing notes of what I can borrow from all you guys. One thing we did before, like ZinnStarter pitch competition, we have a weekly meeting called a mini meeting, which used to be a 1 hour meeting. We're going to change it to mini meetings, so it will be 5 to 7 p.m. So we'll be able to catch more people. But it's a chance for everyone. It's a weekly meeting, but the week before applications are due, we do round robin where everyone who's interested in applying has to pitch in front of everyone else, because part of the application is a 90-second pitch.
Mhm.
And one thing is we found it helpful is we're really trying to build the sort of camaraderie as well as competition. And they sort of begin to sort of hold themselves each other accountable. And so I'm beginning to think like how, you know, could we have that be not a nice to have, but almost a requirement for that. So I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
All right. Alessandra, anything that did not go to perfection from your perspective?
Yeah, just to, I guess, tack on a challenge we had is just the turnaround time. For the fall semester, we have to have it before Thanksgiving because the students disappear after that. And so just giving us enough time to do the application, review them. As Seth mentioned, we require them to meet with one of us prior to pitching to make sure they're prepared. And then putting on the event, it feels so fast. And so we're learning from that and trying to give it more time this semester, where we're hoping like the application will be open first day of school. You know, obviously it'll take a few weeks, a month or two to get people aware of it, but just to give us as much time so we don't have to rush through the applications. And so the students also have enough time to do their application.
And I've got to imagine that one of the issues there is that you don't want to start the process too early because you got a lot of students who are busy trying to figure out what the hell their schedule is, much less, you know, where to find the cafeteria. And, you got to give them some time to actually get acclimated. All right, we lost Annette, so we'll go on to the next thing. Instead of round robining these following bits, why don't we just put it up to an open discussion? The first one being, you know, what did you learn about internal processes for ZinnStarter this year? You know, what did you discover, improve, just, you know, anything about the internal process that was broken, wasn't working great, was working great, etc. So just chime in at will.
I can jump into, I mean, I guess we weren't officially tracking with ZinnStarter, although certainly ZinnStarter shaped a lot of our programs, but we continue to find mentorship to be just plain hard. It's easy to do it mediocre, but which we have been guilty of in years past, I think. But we just find to make sure the student and the mentor both have a high quality experience and to put some safeguards around that is really difficult. And if you're not careful, it eats up a tremendous amount of time and capacity because there's almost like training on both sides and then a little bit of a marketplace function, right? So we're really trying to wrap our arms around more efficient ways to do that and how to ensure, I guess, you know, a more continuous or have less peaks and valleys with our mentorship experiences.
Cool. I'll So in terms of our processes, I think are going to change. We're trying to pilot some new stuff because one of our challenges is getting the right people we want into the Launch Lab, which is our entrepreneurship center. Everyone is welcome. The door is open for everyone. However, if you sort of think of that 2x2 matrix with potential on one and readiness on the other, we want to move more people who are high potential, high readiness, and high potential, low readiness, right? And get those people either from low readiness to move forward, get those high readiness really ready to launch. So one of the things we've done, every kind of outreach we can think of, but one thing we're trying this year, which I'm excited about, we're working with our forestry department, and the forestry department, they have some funding, and so they are spotting 2 forestry students that they think are exceptional, and they are making them entrepreneurship fellows, which means they will be coming in to my office. They will be participating. They will have to apply to different pitch competitions. And so hopefully to get faculty involved and to sort of help us discover, because they know, this is an exceptional student. And when a professor says, you're exceptional, you may never have heard of this entrepreneurship center, but just trust me, go there. That can sometimes make a big impact. So we'll see if that goes well, we'll expand it to other colleges.
Well, you know what? Let me divert the subject then, because you touched on something that's further on down the list. Let's go ahead and talk about, and we'll do this round robin, what A, brought in more teams, and B, what brought in better teams. So, let's start at the top left with WVU. First, what brought in more applicants?
One of the things that brought in more applicants is we had a graduate student fellow who was an entrepreneur. We had the money to have him go in and speak to students. So he went in, he told a story. He's got a great story, student to student. That made a huge impact. The other thing, and I think with that, he also was able, because he's that guy, he was able to run all the numbers to sort of say how many, when we have a booth at a career fair, when I speak in a class, when I'm introduced by a faculty, when I'm not introduced by a faculty, how many of those actually come into our office. So being introduced by faculty and speaking in a class, we saw was the big thing. So that got in the most, and we're definitely seeing the best, highest potential students are often coming when they've been identified by a faculty member. And so we have an aeronautics guy who sent a few people to us.
Yeah, I like the idea of a student, and a graduate student makes even that much more sense, going out and pitching. Sean, I remember back when, before the pandemic, VT was kind of looking at the bifurcation between the undergrads and the grads, and we're thinking about, how should ZinnStarter be augmented to treat those 2 groups differently. What's your thoughts about that in general, but also taking the graduate students and, making them part of a recruitment arm?
Yeah, one of the challenges for us, although I guess you could flip it and say it's also an opportunity, right, is most of our graduate programs, especially the more business-leaning graduate programs, are run at our Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. campus. So like the classic entrepreneurship center is you mix MBAs or masters of technology, whatever, with undergrads. Well, our undergrads are in Blacksburg and our MBAs are 5 hours away, right? And so I do think ZinnStarter is largely scalable to master's programs. We run wide open here on campus. So we actually get a lot of masters of engineering that engage with our undergrads. With regard to class visits, though, for sure, and we actually have students on our student advisory board that are trained ambassadors that go into all the freshman intro classes. So we're in all the business, intro to business, and also all the engineering education. So we hit like 3,000 students a year. Now, how many of them retain it? You know, of course, that's hard to measure, but we know they hear about our center as part of their first year experience, which is one of many touch points. And then students are for sure the best ambassadors because they speak the language, and students don't, you know, go on to screensaver like they do when they see different guest speakers or faculty.
Okay. Anu, what brought in more student teams?
Yeah, so we also like Anne and Sean, we had some students who went and presented in different classes. And like I said, because we had this link then with the Innovation Challenge and ZinnStarter, we had the students going and talking about not only about the Innovation Challenge, but also about ZinnStarter. So we piggybacked on another program, a competition, which is pretty well known across campus. And so we use that to bring in more students into both the Silicon Valley Innovation Challenge and also ZinnStarter. And so the application for that asked a question on whether they were interested in ZinnStarter, and that we would have an information session. And at that information session, we had 3 alumni come in to speak. And so that attracted a lot of interest. And so, and then at the event itself, so our ZinnStarter program really runs in the spring. And so in the fall, when we had this innovation challenge, then we went and spoke to all the 40 teams that were on, you know, that presented. We could I mean, not just me, but, you know, so we went around and we assessed how many of them were, you know, good enough to which ones we should invite to the ZinnStarter, to apply to ZinnStarter. So
Okay.
that's how yeah. And then we did have the application, and we did have 40 questions in the application, but we also looked at, you know, how they did, and then we encouraged them to apply, saying that it's really simple. You'll be able to do it now that you've, you know, made such a good presentation. You're ideally suited to the ZinnStarter program if you're serious about your idea.
Okay.
That's really how we did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about UVU? What brought more applicants to the table?
So I think we have the benefit at UVU that there's enough awareness and clout behind ZinnStarter. We get plenty of applicants, but we found that the highest quality applicants usually came from referrals from our mentors and coaches built into the program. So we encourage them to think through the people that they've been mentoring and coaching, and invite good fits to apply, and those tended to be the best quality applicants. And then, as I mentioned, like, we're really hoping this new programming launching in the fall provides just a really powerful pipeline straight into ZinnStarter, where we've got these experiences where we're, you know, across these different industries, helping students build really actively revenue generating businesses. So we're hoping we got the best applicant pool ever this fall from that. So fingers crossed, but that's what worked well this last semester.
Okay. Alessandra, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add, I think, yeah, the best quality applicants are the ones who were already involved with us and have been to our events. They are familiar with our programs and staff and faculty. The few that we got, quote unquote, random students who had never been involved had a harder time getting ready for that.
Right. Well, let's circle back to the top, because we changed gears there with UVU, and let's discuss what brought in better teams. Now, almost every school has now gotten into filtering aggressively, so that leads to a set of better students. But what are you doing up front when you're actually promoting ZinnStarter that encourages the cream of the crop to come at you and apply, whereas before they might have been sitting on the sidelines. We'll start with you, Ann. You're muted.
Now, got it. This is our big plan for the fall, is to really try to go after the best of the best. So we have at WVU, I think probably maybe some of your schools, they're involved engineering project called the Mars Rover Challenge, which is this global competition where they build a robot. And WVU won it 2 years ago. And there is this sort of hype around, like, that is, if you're the best of the best, that's the team you want to be on. And that's our goal. Our goal is to become, like, when people think of us, that's what we're getting. So I've been doing a lot of talking to people in our engineering department, working in our health sciences, as well as the general places that we're really trying to push that. And we'll be speaking this year to the welcoming class of all the engineering students together. So we want to be aligned when people are talking about some of these really international programs. We want to sort of make sure that we're just at least in that same sentence. But yeah, that is our big goal, and that's what we're talking about. And the other thing is we have a number of so we have 7 student workers, and we have a couple of them that are like top students, so we're really working on them to help reach out to do that.
Okay, that's interesting. Anu, anything that you think gets better candidates to the application table?
Well, one is just, word of mouth. We have also teams from a number of different disciplines, especially from engineering. And they hear, we always tell the current students, current ZinnStarter fellows to inform, their friends and so on. But in any case, it's spread, the word is spread. And one of the things is that our school is also very siloed. So some of these engineers, they're very interested in entrepreneurship, but they are not able to take classes, which is sort of sad, but that's a different matter. So then they are very interested in ZinnStarter, because that's another way in which they can, work on their ideas and possibly get connected with business students and work with business students. So that's really the way. And then the other thing that I'm excited about is that we have just launched, and I don't think I mentioned in the report, I forgot, but we have mentioned we have started a new certificate in innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's for students all across campus. So it's a 3-course certificate. And we are hoping that that's going to attract students who cannot, non-business majors, who cannot take these, entrepreneurship classes otherwise, but they could be in this 3-course certificate program. And, and then hopefully that will be a feeder for ZinnStarter, because in fact, in the fall, the class I'm teaching is very much, it's an experiential class. One of the classes I'm teaching is experiential, and they are supposed to, when Ray heard about it, he said, oh, this sounds just like ZinnStarter. So I said that, in fact, sometimes we've had the best ZinnStarter teams have been in that class, in previous years. And this year, fortunately or unfortunately, instead of 15 students, I have 31 students who have already signed up. So I don't know, maybe for ZinnStarter, that's good. For me, it's definitely bad. But for ZinnStarter, hopefully there will be some promising teams that we can then encourage to, join ZinnStarter.
Right. Okay. Just general open discussion. What did you learn about student teams this year? In the past, we've seen some undulations through the solo practitioners. We've seen that the STEM students, don't know how to balance checkbook, all sorts of little quirks about the teams. Was there anything that stood out this year about what you learned about the teams, and tacked onto that, what you were able to offer them to help them through whatever conundrums or difficulties they were facing?
I'll jump in on this because there were two things that we really learned. One is that there are a lot of talented students with great ideas or great skills, but they don't feel like they're ready to do something on their own. So as I mentioned, we had this program, it was March Matchness, which was hilarious. We had engineering students, non-engineering students. So for instance, we put them in teams, and they had to do the sort of build a tower with marshmallows and spaghetti, except for the engineers weren't allowed to touch anything. They actually had to use their words. And then a lot of the engineers had to do a lot of this imagining thing. But at the end of it, every student got between 30 and 45 seconds to introduce themselves to the students. So there were about 50 students there. Either I have an idea and I'm looking for someone with material science, or I have an idea, I'm looking for someone with engineering. But we also had a huge number of students that said, I'm really good at industrial engineering. I can build anything. Who wants me on their team? And so we had never done it that way before, of having people. And I was surprised how many of our STEM, engineering students, they want to be involved, but and often they have the best ideas. They're just not comfortable. So giving them a chance to join a team. And then the other thing I think I mentioned to Guy, we are trying to do is to get more opportunities for people to pitch their mediocre ideas. Come out, give us your mediocre idea so you can get it off the table, so we can get to your good idea. So we're going to be planning that.
Okay. Now, real quick, this event is well described as a social event. Everyone's in one room together, and you are doing fun things, as well as probably throwing boxes of pizza on the table and all that stuff. Okay, so a social event with a little bit of a gaming theory, or a gaming attraction on it, and that opens people up to say what their idea is or what they're capable of contributing.
And one of the key things is, my colleague and I, we're in the background, but once it's showtime, we are not involved. It is 100% student-led, that event. And that makes a big difference because it gets more into the goofing around. And I'm always shocked at how supportive this generation students are to each other. I wish we had been half that kind when I was in college. But I think that makes a big difference. We had this engineer who was telling the engineers, you guys have got to start using your words. Coming from me, that means something very different than from a fellow engineering student.
So in other words, the faculty creates a playground, gives the kids some candy, and then steps back and watch them go wild. Any other schools doing anything like that?
We have done these in the past, but not recently. And then again, it depends on how you get those students. So, one time, so I've got them through faculty, reaching out to faculty, but that's not the best way, I think, because then they come because their professors ask them to. Whereas if they come, I like your idea, getting the student club to organize something like this would be good, because that could get students interested in entrepreneurship to come in, rather than, they come in because their professors told them to do so. So that's a question. Yeah. But what we found is that having these bi-weekly meetings on campus from like 3 to 5, followed by potluck. We were there, and I attended all these as well. So, usually till 6:30, they were really long. But the benefit was that the ZinnStarter teams really got to know each other, and they were very helpful toward each other. So because we had a number of, as I said before, non-business students as well, some of them were quite shy, found it hard to pitch their ideas, and just didn't seem that enthusiastic and so on. And so having the business students, seeing the business students present and then, getting feedback from fellow students rather than from mentors, although the mentors were also there, was, I think, really helpful and created a community. And so I'm just thinking maybe that's what was a deterrent for some of the teams, because they couldn't, they couldn't make it make it the Fridays that they had to be there. But on the other hand, the ones who could come found it really valuable. So that's something that we need to figure out, but yeah.
All right. It looks like Sean needs to drop out. He's got a meeting conflict, so thank you for being there. Get back with me via email about the funding letter, which I'll get everyone else ramped up on, and stay cool.
Sounds great. Look forward to it. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, well, I think, the social engineering aspect of getting people to open up is so difficult. I went to a tech school, but I was a management major. And I would have discussions with people who were obviously good engineers and wanted to be entrepreneurs. And I would ask them innocent questions like, what is your, potential market size and your addressable market size? And, blood would shoot out of their ears and their eyes would cross. And, they say, we don't know anything about that. We know how to, bolt things together in interesting ways. And I went the other side, I had some entrepreneurial instincts myself. And I would look at this part of the market that I wanted to address, and I would say, I don't know how to engineer that at all. How do I find somebody who has even been in that part of the tech world? So yeah, these social meetings seem like just, the right way to go.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I think we should be able to do that because we have our club, to which I'm faculty advisor, this year the president is from graphic design. And, they have, the team members are from different disciplines. So hopefully that'll help, bring in students, and we should do something like this. I don't know what to call it. November Madness. No.
Okay. Next one on the list, what did you learn about the mentor connections this year?
I'll jump
I-
in. I think, as we kind of mentioned before, we definitely just get better quality applicants when we build those relationships with the students and can one-on-one teach them the things. Something I failed to mention is we tried something new this semester where they were actually required to come to a rehearsal. So 2 days before the actual pitch event, they had to come, time themselves, feel out the stage. And I think that made a world of a difference, because we had mentors there kind of giving them tips and tricks. As I'm sure you guys do, we invite, community members, high stakes, and we want them to represent themselves well and our school well. And so it was really great to have the opportunity to practice with them.
Okay. So back to the topic, what did you learn about mentor connections, getting students and mentors into dialogues?
So like I said, we found it really valuable to have some mentors show up to the meetings that had already been set, so everyone knew that they had to meet, on this particular Friday. And so at this particular time, and the mentors were there. And then many of those mentors, and one in particular, one of the students was a solopreneur. And then she was anxious about presenting and so on. But the mentor really worked with her, one-on-one, and helped her a lot. And she found that very valuable. So it was not just, he came to that meeting, but then he also met with her separately to help her, guide her, etc. He even came to the meeting with Ray when Ray came. And Ray had to tell him not to answer on the student's behalf. But he really took on his role as a mentor and, in helping that particular student who needed the help. So, if we can build that, that's something that we can't always guarantee, but it worked really well.
Okay.
I'd say one thing we definitely learned well is that sometimes students need a script, an initial script of how to, I hate to say it, how to talk to an adult. These are bright students and they're daring in many things. Picking up the phone and making a phone call is not one of them. So that is one thing, when we sort of practice, like, how do you go about, what are you going to say in these meetings, how much you answer this in person or in Zoom, that just gave them the confidence. But the other thing we definitely learn with mentors is to talk to them about having a North Star. So this mentor can be their North Star, we can be their North Star, but for some of our students who are doing really great things, we would sometimes get very eager mentors who would give them information that was contrary to what we were saying. And so we sort of, we're learning to manage that. And it can all be good information, but if it's contradictory information, that can be tough. And so we're learning how to talk about this when you're going out and getting mentors. Have, who's a North Star that you can go back to on stuff.
Yeah, I want to change just one direction here, because it just occurred to me that over the last couple of years, the one thing that I keep hearing is that a general lack of self-confidence among students is a barrier to applying. It's a barrier to becoming business ready. It's a barrier to opening a conversation with their mentor, blah, 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 blah. I think it might be interesting if one of the schools has a psychology department and you can go over and tap them and say, how do we get students, green students, to have enough self-confidence to walk into a meeting room, shake somebody's hand, tell them, hey, this is my dumb idea, but I'm hoping to do something great with it. It might be worth, a small investment to get somebody from the psychology school to say, here are 3 things that you can do as part of your recruitment process to make everyone feel confident that they have either a great idea or they have confidence to accept the fact that even if they fall on their face, they're moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. We don't have that, but we do have something we've introduced, when I say we, the College of Business, called the Career Launch Initiative, CLI, Career Launch Initiative. And that is someone external who's running it. That's the idea. I mean, I've attended those sessions, but it's not just for entrepreneurship students. But it's to help our students, our honor students, to get better and at interacting with grown-ups, and how do you talk to them, how do you open a conversation. So that's what we're trying to do.
One quick thought from both of your comments, I think, guys, right, there's this psychological element to it, there's this social element to it, and it's actually connected to the mentoring question as well. But in my experience, just matching students to mentoring relationships it very rarely works. It really needs to be organic to some degree. And so the way we've thought about approaching it in terms of helping students learn the language of business and entrepreneurship and know how to approach mentors, as well as kind of facilitate this matching process, is we think of it as building communities, like little pockets and opportunities for students and mentors to kind of have an organic experience with each other. So we've built that into these classes that lead into ZinnStarter, where again, these workshops are students come and mentors come knowing what the students are already working on, exactly what industry they're in, all the information they need to know to feel like, yes, I'm walking into a situation where I can add value. And then the students are coming and they know I'm surrounded by people in my industry, excited about helping me be successful. And so they know we've just tried to build the perfect environment to form a little community, all passionate about the same business industry, all excited about kind of moving their business forward. And so I like that aspect. And I think there's different ways you can do that. That's the way we're trying to do it. But think about the mentoring relationship and this confidence building exercise as facilitated by community, I think, is important.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
So to that, so that's what I've tried to do with the, we have a mentor connect a day when we invite mentors to come in, and when we select those mentors based on, I mean, I invite someone because if I know a student is working on this particular area, finance in Africa, then I try to get someone who can help with credit rating in Africa or whatever, so get specific mentors, and that has worked. But again, it all depends, on whether they manage to meet and whether there is some chemistry and whether they get on. And the other thing is what we have this year, more generic, mentors with business industry marketing experience. And the fact that they came in, and also finance, and the fact that they came in regularly helped to build some sort of, a rapport with some of the students. So it's yeah, it's I don't know what the magic solution is, but one, doing all of the above helps.
Okay. Because we have gone on for quite a bit, I'm going to skip down towards the bottom. Just open discussion about student teams actually launching. Are we seeing progress in terms of the number of teams that make it past the first filter actually launching? And if not, are we seeing a better ramp up in terms of business readiness after filtering? Because the whole point is of ZinnStarter is to teach people how to launch. And if we're not achieving that milestone, then, we're not focused well. So what are you seeing in terms of the number or ratio of teams that are actually turning a buck before they in the school year, or at least how many are getting to the point where they're ready to take their first orders?
We're definitely seeing positive traction. We're getting more students who are starting, and just we're really pushing them, fail forward, get out and do it. But this year we have one of our students, actually, she's pitching for 250,000 as we speak. And she'll be a senior. So we're getting there. We had one great role model of a business that just blew up, and those two guys have come back to campus and they have spoken. And I think now we have two businesses that are ready to blow up. So I think that now that students can actually see and believe it could be done, we seem to be getting traction. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm knocking on wood as I say that.
Okay. Anyone else with thoughts about the progress of getting people to generating revenue, or at least getting to the point where they're ready to generate rev?
Yeah, so I think this last fall we probably had about 50% of the competitors at ZinnStarter having already achieved some level of revenue. And we're hoping with this new programming leading up to ZinnStarter that ratio is much higher, because and even if it's just a little bit, right, there's something really transformative about getting that first client, or that first launch of your e-commerce. So even if it's trickling in, that's still something that's really life-changing in kind of the business experience of these students. So we're trying to get as many as possible through this programming. Again, we call it our 0 to revenue courses for exactly that reason, because revenue is the goal. And then yeah, we're hoping ZinnStarter is a magnifier, a launch in terms of that progress. We had, our second place winner at ZinnStarter this year, I think, will do $500,000 in revenue this year. So we do have a couple big swings, some big hits, and that definitely helps, like you say, change expectations and give some students something to look at. From this conversation, we'll definitely work hard to make sure we reincorporate these ZinnStarter successes back into the following semesters, and so that upward momentum and upward aspirations kind of is there. But yeah, we're hoping, again, fingers crossed, these programs really help move the needle there, because that's where the magic happens, is when these students make money.
Well, that 50% number is, I think, a good comparison base. What are the other schools think they're seeing in terms of end of year percentage of teams that are turning rev?
It's hard for me to say, but they are, I don't know. I mean, I can look, I should look at the teams and see. But they're definitely, I would say that the best ones, they're definitely going ahead. And, looking at the past as well, we can see that some of them done incredibly well, some of the teams knock on wood. But yeah, so I would say that definitely one of them, a couple of them need more funding, but they are, going for that. They are not taking up. One of them has graduated, but he's continuing to work on his project and very serious about it. And I think the other guy is coming back to do an MBA at San Jose State and says that he will use the time to work on his project as well. So, I'm hopeful that they will. And I think one of the teams has already got, the one that got the first place in the business plan competition. He's already generating revenue. It's an ed tech using AI. And so, yeah, it's for,
Right.
yeah.
Do you have a guesstimate as to what percentage of the student teams were business ready before the end of the year?
I would say that, I would say definitely, like when you say business ready, they participated in, they submitted pretty good business plans. They already had, prototype, they'd set up some sort of a website, or they had the means to show that they could, they could demonstrate that they could do what they were saying they are, able to do. So, then the question is finding customers. And one of them, as I said, one of the teams has found someone who is willing to use their service, to test their service. So that's a good, that's a good
Right.
indication.
For the coming year, why don't we get all schools to add to their end of the year reports, what percentages of students were at the point where they could start turning revenue and how many were actually turning revenue, because that's a metric that I think Ray would be able to sink his teeth into. And it would be, I think, an important validation for him. And did you have a guesstimate as to relative percentages for rev or business readiness?
I think, when I'm thinking about it, it's maybe probably about 50% that are out there now making money. One of the things is we do sort of split between, they're the ones that have the more, let's say, more retail type of business. They're out there and doing it. And then we also have the businesses that are now, they're in the fundraising stage. And so I think we have 3 teams that are in the fundraising stage right now. So, which is great, but it's also a challenge because you can be great at fundraising and then still be nervous about launching your business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think we had just that one guy who was doing something in retail who, dropped out. Otherwise, they're all tech type businesses. So it's it's more challenging, but I'll go back and look. I don't have the details. Happy
That's
to.
the problem you have being there in Silicon Valley. I mean, quite seriously, San Jose. Okay. Before we jump into open discussion, let's quickly talk about the funding letters. You need to get me your next year funding letters by, let's say, the end of August, at the dead latest, but the sooner the better. To remind you, funding letters don't have to be long. First page should probably be, thank you, this is how much we want, this is how we plan on spending it. line items are good. If you have column for coming year and a separate column for this is what we did last year, that gives Ray a real easy way to say, you know, what you spend it on, how you spend it, whether you're looking for more, how you're applying it, and that's really great. Then after that first page, if you want to go into saying, here's all the great and wonderful things that we managed to accomplish last year, that's a good move. It's not required, but when you're asking for money and you say, the money you spent last year produced these results, that's a great thing. And I would take the time to dig in and find out how many students started generating revenue, how many dropped out, or no, let me rephrase it. How many teams that passed initial filtering made it all the way to the finish line, et cetera, et cetera. Those kind of high level metrics make it easy for Ray to wrap his brain around. And he really likes getting the high level news story first and then the fluff second. And the fluff's important, but that order definitely is a better formula. So end of August, if not earlier, 1 to 2 pages is fine. Send it to me first before you copy him, because I would like to give you the benefit of my insights to tweak or hone something before he sees it, because I'm really good at spotting things that will make him cross his eyes or ask really hard questions. Funding letter and looking for new candidates. What I would like you to do, no rush, but before Thanksgiving, try to think of 2 schools which have preferably an entrepreneur center in them, or at least a business school that has an entrepreneurship set of classes. A school whereby you have a connection there and can make an introduction, and tell me who they are first, because I want to do a little bit of background research. But then, once I think that they might be a good ZinnStarter candidate, I will then echo back to you and say, please make an introduction. I learned the hard way that going out and pitching ZinnStarter to somebody who has never heard of us and for which they don't have a social connection is just a dead end street. So I really need your help on this one. And so other than that, open discussion, anything Ray and I need to be doing for you, anything that you want to do with the other schools. I know that everyone has been clamoring to have some sort of meeting for all of the ZinnStarter students from all of the schools to get together and do something. And I have done exactly this much to get that happening. But it's not left my mind. So anything you want to talk, throw it on the table now.
So can I ask for a clarification? So is it that at UVU and at WVU do have is it I think Seth or Alessandra referred to a pitch. Is ZinnStarter a pitch contest, or is it a program for you guys for Anne? I mean, either of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead.
Go.
I think, again, like Seth and I just got here, so we're figuring out how we want to make this work. I think until now, it's just been a pitch event once a semester. I like the ideas that you gave about having the ZinnStarter alumni come back and help mentor, and I think we can create more of a program through that. But yeah, right now it's kind of just that one event in the semester.
And we've kind of built our programming around it, so it's hard to say where ZinnStarter ends and the other programming that's supporting it begins and ends, so to speak. But all of our build a business programming kind of leads into ZinnStarter. So
Okay, and you?
And ours is it's pitch competition in the fall, but that leads into a much larger statewide pitch competition in the spring.
Mhm,
So it sort of moves forward.
mhm. Yeah, so.
Quick question, Guy, if I could, just about the referring other schools, what are kind of the types of schools you're looking for? Because I've worked with, before taking this position, I consulted universities on their entrepreneurship programs, and so I'm well connected, but it's more on the elite side of schools. Is there what are types of, what are the criteria for schools that you're wanting to partner with?
Well, the criteria for the schools primarily is, do they have some sort of program or center for encouraging entrepreneurship? Because Ray's goal is to take students in the rough and get them ready to actually be entrepreneurs. So a school that, had a great business school, but it had no entrepreneurship curricula, no entrepreneurship center or whatnot, that would be far less interesting to us. An engineering school that had a, small but healthy entrepreneurship addendum to engineering, that would be of interest to us. So it's, that's like the minimum element. SJSU was a great example because they had entrepreneur centers, or at least clusters in the early days. They had lots of engineering. This was, a great, double intersection. But it is, basically, getting kids ready to go into business.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of two, but one is San Diego State, because Dan Moshavi, who was our dean, moved there. So that's a possibility if that's something that interests you. And he's
That does, because it means I might be able to go travel to San Diego.
it's a very nice campus, by the way. And then the other one is our dean moved from University of San Diego, which I've not visited, but that's also San Diego. So she could, she could probably, I'm sure she can introduce you to whoever is the person there. I mean, I also know him, but it would be better if she introduces you. So those
Well, I
are the
would be interested because I know one of those two schools, I can't remember which one, has a good biotech curricula there. And, as we were talking about before, I'm very intrigued by how biotech's going to blow up in the future. And so it's probably, ripe picking at the moment.
And Guy, do you want these to be US based schools?
For the time being, yeah. Unless you find one in Amsterdam, and that gives me an excuse to get on a plane and go over there.
Well, I have lots of contacts in England, any of the major British schools. My previous affiliation was Oxford, and I helped build their program. So, but
Well,
Well,
that's great.
I tell you
actually,
what, Great Britain would be an interesting touch point for us. I tell you what, let's provisionally pick one GB school, but let's stay focused on the US. And I say that because I want to do two things at the same time. I believe Ray's original conceptualization was, how can we spread entrepreneurialism in the United States, kind of make the whole US of A, entrepreneurial minded. But I want to see whether ZinnStarter plays in Poughkeepsie. I want to see if you can actually take it on the road and whether other places find value in it.
Yeah. There are two that come to mind for me. One is Marshall, which is probably not as exciting as visiting San Diego, down in Huntington, West Virginia. But they're doing some really interesting changes. Brad Smith is so entrepreneurship focused. It's a really cool time. And the other is Denison College, in Ohio. But Seth, I went to business school in England. I went to Cranfield.
awesome.
My heart is there.
I studied in England too. I went to Cambridge, just the other.
So Denison, what city is that in?
Madison, it's in Ohio. Hang on a second.
Well,
I got,
is it in the Rust Belt?
let me look. I'll tell you what I know about. I got introduced to Denison because we had a cross college team. So we had a team that was very successful that was half Denison, half WVU. We had to figure out how to put them in there. So where were they located? I will find out. I will find out everything about them and send it to you, Guy.
Okay, great. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and wrap this up for this year? Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for hosting the Zoom for us.
Thank you.
Please send me the audio when it's ready, no rush. And other than that, enjoy the warm weather.
You do. Thank you.
Thanks so
Yep.
much. Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Likewise.